Hello, everyone. Welcome to Creative Entrepreneurs Club. This month's studio visit is with artist Tina Crawford, who is both a fine artist and has a product line of homewares and giftwares called Toby Boo. Tina is going to chat to us for a little bit, then take us into her studio and show us all her sort of journey of products and making and kind of where all the magic happens. And then we'll come back and do some questions and answers. So, Tina, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for asking me.
It's a pleasure. I mean, Tina and I have known each other a long time, and I've seen the evolution of different sides of the practice that you've kind of realized. Will you talk us a little bit through your journey from, start to kind of where you are today, the highlights and the key kind of factors in influencing where you're at?
Yeah, I would say, yes, I went to art college. I went to St Martin's, but I actually did, I did jewellery design there because my tutors in foundation thought I was quite useless, but thought you work quite small and you work three-dimensionally. Realizing it now, I'm completely opposite, but I kind of was forced into that. So I did that. And I think I knew from quite an early age that I was either I wanted to do something that was art-based because that was pretty much the only thing that I was any good at. So I thought somehow that's the way I'm going to go. But I know when I was a teenager, I thought I really want to work in TV. So I think at 15, I used to, I was probably the most active when I was a teenager because I used to blag my way into TV programs and up my age to be a runner. And also when I was 14, 15, I had a business. I was making female jewelry, selling that to actual retail, not just classmates. What happened? And then, so after in the last year of my degree, when you had to do a dissertation, I was a bit panicky because I didn't realise you had to do that, and I thought I can't write an essay. And long story short, I got diagnosed with dyslexia then. So I knew I was dyslexic then, but I just thought, but I'm still lazy, so that's not no excuse. But it kind of made me doubt the art side of things because actually my dissertation was far more magazine-y, and I then left St Martin's and actually I went into working into, I think it was like a newspaper or a magazine as a dog's body first, and then I started working in the BBC, and the first job I got, proper job, was I was working on the kids art program Smart, which was perfect because it meant that I was using TV and art, and it was doing all the makes. It wasn't a dog's body job. It was coming up with all the aerial view pictures, all the makes. So I did 2 series of that, and then I fell in love with TV. I thought, this is it. I love TV. This is where I want to go. And I mean, my TV career is great. I mean, I was working on all the shows that I wanted to work on. And then I got ill in 2000. So I graduated 94. So I've been working in TV 94 to 2000. That's Pookie, sorry. And then so I got ill, didn't know what was wrong with me, got sent home from the last TV job that I was working on. And I can't remember how long it took for a diagnosis, but my symptoms were chronic pain. I was sofa bound, was living we got married in 2000. So I was with my husband and he literally had to do everything. So I'd be lying on the sofa, and then when he came home, that's when I got up off the sofa because I couldn't get up on my own. So he had to help me do everything. So I went from that to slowly got a little bit better after sort of episodes of paralysis and stuff. And I found an adult education course, which was free embroidery. And I thought, brilliant, I can get disability transport there, and I'm sitting down and I can do that on the machine. And I'd never really used a sewing machine before. I don't think, no, but started using it and I'm lying, I did use a sewing machine before, because the reason why I did it, there's a chunk I'd completely forgotten about, which is when I got ill and I could actually kind of use my hands, I got a sewing machine and I started making handbags that were one-off handbags, and I managed to get them to sort of presenters at the time because of my links. So it was kind of like things like they did get in magazines and stuff, so I got a decent amount of publicity. I completely forgot. And that was Twinkle handbags, and that was kind of applique stuff, so it wasn't free embroidery. So anyway, then I did this free embroidery course with some lovely ladies who I learned a lot from, because they were older and wiser than me. And I fell in love with free embroidery. I thought, this is brilliant. I love the way that I can draw with this. I was so much freer than pencil and paper, because I felt like I could hide behind the machine. I thought, I can do this and I don't feel embarrassed about it, because it's not me, it's the machine. Whereas if I was drawing, I'd almost like feel really exposed. So that's how I got into free embroidery. But obviously being out of work, so couldn't go back into TV because I was still ill, still in pain. I realised quite quickly that I was going to have to try and make some money. So then I'm sort of going back to what I'd done before, thinking, oh, okay, I can do this because I've managed this before. At the same time of being ill in 2000, we started trying for a baby as well, because why not? You're ill. I mean, my mum said that to me. She said, well, it's the perfect time now. You're at home, so you may as well try and have a baby. So we were trying, didn't know what effort it was going to take and how long it was going to take. So after lots of rounds of IVF, he was actually born in 2007. And the first thing that I started making to actually think, oh, I could make some money from this, was baby stuff. You start meeting a new crowd of mums, and first of all you're making presents, and then it's just kind of like, oh, people would commission me. So I was making these like kind of one-off really lovely unique blankets, actually, you know. It would have the kid's name on it, and it would have random themes. Like one, I had to combine golf with something really cutesy because the dad was really into golf. That was quite fun, because you're just doing, you know, something really special for someone. And then I was also making these dolls, so I was making kind of retro sort of style, like firemen and policemen, kind of quite nostalgic, but they weren't dolls to play with, they were art dolls. And so there was that as well. So it was all very kidsy. That was why it was called Toby Boo. And then everything was just freehand, one of a kind. And the reason why I started going into then printing was, I'm pretty certain this was the point, there was a buyer from Liberty. I went to the open call at Liberty, and no, Liberty didn't, they liked me and they liked my stuff, but I never got my stuff in there. But one of the things that they said was, you need to find a way that you're not doing this each one by hand. You need to find a way to reproduce this more. And I never liked the idea of the textile. I never liked the idea of the embroideries being printed onto textile, because I thought that's a bit of a cheat, because people might think that you're saying it's embroidered. And I loved the idea of China. And so I kind of got the first things I think I got them printed on, it was Fine by China. I wanted everything to be over here. I wanted everything to be British made. That was a conscious decision, even though it's more expensive. I needed that. And that was kind of, yeah. And I probably answered some more stuff in the film, so I'll stop and let you watch that.
Well, just before we go and do studio visit, let's talk about, so funnily enough, with your art background, started making products kind of before you started making freehand embroidery.
Yeah. I think probably because I saw art as a thing of, I do that for me, but in order to make money, I need to do stuff for other people. So it wasn't like I wasn't doing it, it's just that it's trying to find a way. I mean, going back to when I was 14, 15, the idea of kind of I was making, I was selling to make money. I can remember getting an order for 200 sheep brooches for a shop in Covent Garden. It's quite a weird thing for a 14-year-old to get that. So I obviously had something to think, right, well, you need to make something out of this. And I didn't have parents that were, well, I suppose maybe they were, because my parents didn't want me to go to art college at all, because they just thought that's a waste of, well, they would have thought university was a waste of time. It wasn't just an art thing. They just thought go and get a job. So obviously money making, you don't realize how it's just there, that your parents are like, something is subconsciously there, isn't it? And mine was make some money. So products, I guess I had to do first, because I knew I could make some money out of that. Yeah. And so I went backwards.
Where are you at now with, not backwards, just non-linear?
Yeah.
Where are you at now with the fine art work?
So now it's great because it's lockdown. Everything that's happened in lockdown. I had a huge order that was going to be going in last year. So you're looking at £25,000 worth of stuff. Just, that's not happening. That's not going to happen for a long while, because visitors are not going to be coming in. Even when the shops are open, when are you going to get tourists in? And I supply tourist shops. And so it was almost guilt-free actually working on whatever I wanted to work on. But it was getting to the stage of what is it I want to work on. And that was interesting, because I like social media a lot anyway. And I really enjoy Twitter when it's nice. And I found that my conversations and my company was everyone on Twitter. And that made me think, the piece that I did in lockdown, I wanted an engagement piece, because I wanted to do something that was connected up with them. And I then wanted to connect back to them. I wanted the interaction. And I think that's what I really learned last year, which was what I want from my art isn't, I could just make stuff. People that kind of like say, oh, it's an expression and it's this and it's this, that's great. You can do that, but you don't have to let anybody else see it. What makes you want it to be in a gallery? What part of it? Is it that you want it to be in a gallery because you want to sell it? Is it that you want it to be, do you want it to be seen? What's the reason? And for me, I think I realized I want to do big pieces that have an engagement, that the most amount of people that can see it. I want the connection, I want their reaction. And I'd never had that before. I kind of just had that, I just really want to make what's inside of me, and I like people to like, I suddenly realized how, that I suddenly was working on a different plane, I guess. So yes, and that's where I am now. So it's kind of gone, okay, so whereas a lot of people that are artists, and actually a lot of illustrators do this, they do their art and then they find an avenue to make money out of it, some, sort of in products. I just kind of did the other way around. I just did, lots of products, but it was, and I did cheap products, I did high-end, I did the whole range. So I did from, very expensive wallpaper to, melamine trays and stuff. It was licensed out, gift card, greeting cards. I mean, I cannot think of a thing I didn't print on. I really can't. Tea bag holders. It was on, I can't, I don't know. Just look. Coasters, it's just like all around the house. It's something.
But I mean, there was an interested audience in it, so
yeah,
there was a reason.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, that has been, because I've managed to sell for over 10 years, so can't be that bad.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we'll see in the video in a minute when we go to the studio is there's a real sort of division, I think, between the two bodies of work. The commercial work is quintessentially British, very charming, really really British heritage, and it is really well placed in iconic British gift shops of iconic British tourist locations. And that stuff has a real identity of its own and a real following. People really love it.
Yeah, no, they do. I mean, I am passionate. I'm really passionate about museums and gallery shops, because it annoys me when they get the same tatting on every. What's the point in going to a visitor shop and thinking I'll get that when you can just get it in Waterstones? What's the point? You need something that you can only get in there, and then they take away, and that's their memory, that's part of the visit. So I feel quite passionate about it. I could have done it that actually I could have sold an awful lot more and churned out a lot. And I realized quite early on, I don't want to do that. I specifically went for bespoke. So it took me about a year. And then I realized I want to do bespoke. I want to just do stuff for that place and make it really, really super special. That
They
was
must
the difference.
love that about you.
Well, yeah, there's an awful lot of people out there. There's an awful lot of illustrators and stuff. And they do what they do, and that's great. And they make money from it. But they're not getting, that's not what I do. That's a separate business. That's not what I do. So even though I do products, there is still that art element. There is still, it's not practically just doing the drawing. It's more than that. It is more than that. And it's again, it's engagement. It's all about engagement. I'll shut up now.
I think it's a really great realization, though, that is the thing that connects everything, that connects all the work. Because what I was going to say is the fine artwork is really, really personal and has a lot to do with what goes on in your life, health, politics, the things that affect you, and your engagement with other people. So if the strand that connects both of those things is human interaction, which is so important to you, then, that's really
it's true. I mean, no pun intended, but there is a common thread that, or maybe pun intended, I don't know, but there is a common thread.
Right. Well, let's go and poke around the studio and see all that magic happen, and we'll see everybody when we get back.
Hi, well, this is it. This is my studios. This is second floor studios. This is a building outside, so you can see what it's like. Just gonna walk here, which is no format gallery, which is attached to the studios, and ta-da! In there, that is my piece connected by a thread, which I did in first lockdown. Might ramble on about that later. I'm going to switch off now and head upstairs. Hello. This is my studio. Welcome. It's a bit weird being behind the camera. I don't really like not having anybody to talk to. So for this purpose, I'm going to use Noel. And if I just say that every now and again, I like to make a doll of someone, and this was made because in lockdown there was Sky Portrait Artist of the Year. He was one of the celebrity sitters, and this was the portrait that I did. So come on in. Thank you, Noel. That's a great guide. It is a big studio, and I kind of divide it up into this half, which is, in order to be here, I need a regular income, commercial side. This is it. So Toby Boo, which kind of started off with, they're all embroidery illustrated. So if you see my work on Instagram, have you? If you see my work on Instagram, everything is stitched. And this was one of the first things that I did, which I would get it down for you, but I can't reach. So you can see that they're kind of oilcloth bags. And then I printed on a lot of items, but China was my favourite. You can see here there's leather, there's even engraved glass, and that's where the money comes in. So from St Paul's, Museum of London, Kew Gardens, John Soane Museum. I'm lucky I had some really lovely buyers, and that was in the High Street. So I also did walk this way. I also did John Lewis, House of Fraser. I'm repeating myself, aren't I? Sorry, that's from the Globe. Anyway, that's enough for Toby Boo. So that enables me to be here. And then the rest of the studio, you can see this is basically where I work. This is it. That's the machine that I use. It's not a special machine, it's a domestic. It's just a normal domestic one. I get an awful lot of questions about that, saying what's the special machine that you use. It's just a normal domestic. That's random stuff. So I can show you a few pieces of work if you're interested. Are you interested? Okay. So this is like the last piece that I made. So this is called Bridging the Gap. because in lockdown, obviously, I tend to try and use whatever materials are around anyway, but obviously I had like these kind of shirts, and if you look at the shape of it, might give you a clue as to what it's about. It's got a portrait of Kamala Harris, and her quote, I may be the first, but I won't be the last. But the quotes around the actual shirt itself are things that were said to me, because I'm brown. So kind of racist things that have been said to me in the past. And I think if you look at the shape of that, you kind of can get the gist of what that's about. This is, I kind of tend to do pieces around, I don't consciously think about what I'm going to do pieces around, if I'm honest. This piece is called Dead to Me. It's on a drip stand. It's the same height as me, so that's how tall I am. 4'11". And it was, if you look around this side, well, if I show you this side, the text that's embroidered, it was, I won't read it out, but it's basically to do with, it was pre-hysterectomy. I think, again, look, the shapes are everything. The shapes there you go. You can sort of it's just nice to be able to sort of show some details, I guess. There's an egg. And I did quite a few pieces of work where I was using rubbish, partly because I didn't really want to buy fat, so I wasn't making an overly kind of environmental statement, because I don't know, that's the sort, I mean, I kind of do, but I don't. We all know we don't need to be told it, but this piece is the cushion that is from my larger piece, the bed piece, which is called Comfort Blanket. So this has got the story of my bulimia, but also connecting bulimia to, I guess, what we're doing to the environment. Again, here, this is kind of to do with, you can see it's a Lego brick, it's got money, it's kind of, that's my own environment. Where I live, there's a lot of kind of building going up, it's all for the money, blah blah blah. But each piece of plastic that I had, you try and focus, it would really help. It's almost like I try to justify everything. So things like this, it says love to share on I stitched, well I didn't. It's kind of there, I can see a sort of slight edge of birthday, it probably says another birthday card. And actually that was kind of a good project for me. Kind of, I think pretty much lots of pieces in here, even though the outside and the stitching is the main, that's really, I don't know how to focus that. I do, I'm pushing the button. There we go. If you want to read any of the text, because obviously there's a lot of it, it's on my website, basically, on the pieces, so you can see. This is kind of another sort of accidental, it's not accidental, it's just I don't try to make kind of political art, I don't try to make it, just I think art just comes about from what you're feeling and it's your translation. This is almost like, this is like a bookend piece in terms of, I did one piece that was at the start of Trump's reign, and it was his, basically using his tweets, which at the time when I started doing it, it wasn't a thing that people were sort of immortalising his tweets. Yeah, there is a huge project that now goes on that people are doing it. It kind of makes sense, because for something as disposable as what he says, it kind of almost does need to be immortalised. So that piece, which is sold, was called Bird Crap, and this piece, which is called White Noise, and it's got a silver lining, has obviously come at the end. So these are kind of like his rants at the end, which is I won the election. And again, you know, if you want to sort of read it, there'll be the text up, there is no point, but it gives you an idea of what the texture's like, which is the main thing about this piece. these pieces here are from, I had a solo exhibition in 2016. I know, lucky me. And yeah, I don't think I appreciated at the time actually what a huge thing it was that the curator asked me to do more skeletal work. And because it was the first time that I properly exhibited, it was kind of wow. I think now, thinking, wow, I really wish I'd made more of it. I enjoyed doing it. It's a lot of work. More Toby Boo pieces here, cushions. I'm going to be working on something with these, which is my collection of Happy Meal toys from the 80s. My son's collection, so there's an awful lot of Happy Meal toys I'm doing something with. This is regular lunch in the studio. There you go. Also done some sort of three-dimensional embroideries. That's a skull. This again, these dolls these are probably the first dolls that I did, maybe. So I don't plan them out. I mean, you can see, I mean, even with Noel, you can kind of see I just do it and I make it up, and that's the charm. But the dolls have been too. This hasn't got to Noel, but I kind of don't mind him being in the studio. If he doesn't want it, he doesn't want it. But if he wants it, it's here. But those that have had a doll are Grayson Perry, Jean-Paul Gaultier, and Martin Parr. And also this is my freak show. So this is the Harriet the Bearded Lady. They're really nicely framed up now because look, they've got a little engraved plaque. That's Lydia, the tattooed lady, and that's Lupe, the wolf boy. I also have Phil and Grant, the conjoined twins, but they've gone off to Pierre Agile, which I'm super happy about, because I love their work. So it's kind of nice that actually people that I really admire have kind of got a little piece of mine, which is, you know, even to sort of like be vaguely seen, that's a nice feeling, not in a stalkerish way. This is another piece from An Unnatural History, which is my solo exhibition. So I've got quite a few sort of pieces, old pieces kind of here. This I really like. This was kind of stitched onto plastic leather, and there is silver thread in there, if you can see. That's a certain brain tumour. And then the wallpaper that's up is, well, I nearly sort of went into doing some wallpaper. I mean, I really did print onto pretty much anything and everything when I could. Put that stitching onto some vintage embroidery, so combining some old and new. Again, another kind of sort of more three-dimensional. These were, I am a hoarder, but this runs in the family because these record sleeves were my dad when he died. There seemed to be a pile of record sleeves, so I thought I'd use those. I picked that up outside the studio. One day I might work with her. And then this is this is sometimes my brain. That's pretty much normally what my head's like. But I've learned a lot over, so I've been going, so what I probably should have said at the start, maybe introduce myself a bit better. I started doing Toby Boo in, oh gosh, probably about 2010 maybe. I started actually drawing with the sewing machine in, can I turn it around? Will it actually show me if I turn it around? I started drawing with the sewing machine, I think it's about 2003 or 2004. I did an adult education course. That's how I started. And I cut some parts I think were quite lucky and just quite random. Like I went into the Museum of London and thought they might really like the teacups that I did, and they did. And it went from there. And then there was a point where, yeah, I was kind of doing quite well and I was doing personalised baby blankets and things. then there was a point where it was just, actually, this isn't what I want to do, and I want to make my own art. And then I just took the lockdown, really forced me into it, because last year my orders were cancelled. So now I get to concentrate on more this, which is great. I've got a lot of ideas, and it's kind of like, it's just a shame I'm not coming in every day, because I would like to, but obviously with COVID I've got to get a train here. I'm sort of half an hour away, but I do, these are kind of like more commercial pieces. And last month I did manage to sell a few bits that I'd already stitched, like that. That's pretty commercial. That's not the time that never is. I don't know why I don't put battery in it. This is the motto that I try to live by. So yeah, these are kind of quick sketches, which I did outside, which I quite like. But the thing about the sewing machine is, whatever line I do, I really can't repeat it. So the amount of times that I have had people say, I really like that, can you redo it? So I do prints every now and again if I can. But it's, as you can see, I stitch onto anything as well, and plastic and that. So yeah, I look forward to your questions. I hope that's kind of a good enough tour of what I do. I can show you outside. That's my view. So I'm really lucky, because that's one thing that I forgot to mention, is the community here. Is, yeah, I could work from home, but what I want is an art community. I mean, it's why I kind of like love here, to be honest, because I need to speak to other people, because otherwise I'm basically talking to these three, possibly him as well. Don't turn your back on me. So the community here is great. So yeah, I hope that's all right. I've already forgotten what I said, so I really super look forward to your questions. Bye.
So thank you, Tina. If anyone was able to see Tina while that was happening, there was just fucking pain, just sheer humiliation and pain. And Anne and Serena and Aoife and everybody who comes to our monthly group art chat can tell you that all I do is go on and on about how you talk about yourself, and the more you do it, the less painful it gets. That looked excruciating to me. I mean, if you could see Tina, like, we should have just, how they have that lady signing in the corner of the regular shows? If we just had a box of Tina in the bottom, we would all, I mean, it was like, if you just watched the video of the studio, it was lovely and it was fine. But if you watch Tina watching it, it was like a special form of torture.
Awful. And to think the first time I did that, it was 28 minutes long. Oh my God.
It's not easy. And everyone here knows it's not easy to talk about yourself.
It's like yeah, that's horrible. Move on, somebody else.
Right. So, do you want to, it's not horrible. Yeah, I mean, guys, feel free to chime in here. It was awesome. No need to be embarrassed. See, this is a supportive, lovely group of humans. Can we talk about the dolls for a second?
Yeah.
You just rushed over it, but I think the first one was the first one for what's her face, the ginger bird. What's her name?
You're right. Actually, I forgot that. The first one was Mary Porter's, because I won a thing, and it was, my products were in. She had a concession in House of Fraser. And so I think there was a few of us that won, and basically our products got to go into the main House of Fraser stores. And I'd met her a few times, and then I'd made her a little one, and I made Peter Cross, who was working with her, who is now, well, he was the commercial director of John Lewis. So those are the first kind of gimmicky ones. And then I did one for Paul Smith, then Grayson Perry, then I've already forgotten who I did.
Jean-Paul Gaultier.
Oh yeah, that was lovely. Yeah. Yeah.
Then they were kind of accidental. They weren't a conscious
Oh,
invention.
I'm just going to answer this. Those I gave, because the dolls I don't sell. I can't sell the dolls. The dolls I literally just kind of, they were a real gimmicky kind of. Jean-Paul Gaultier was, I went to a talk that he did at the South Bank before he did his Fashion Freak show, and I had the doll. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. I was going to leave it by the stage door, and then my friend actually just took it on stage and left it in his chair. And so when he came out, but it was great because there was lots of press shots of it. So it was just kind of like quite nice. And then the same with Grayson Perry, went to a talk, and I rely on friends a lot for this, because the friend stood up as if he was asking a question, and then the doll got taken forward. So it's basically, it's a publicity gimmick. It's not, I'm not getting any money out of that, but it's nice. It's, you know, I like it. I like the fact that I can't do the dolls to commission. They're just fun. Yeah, it is. It's just PR.
How can we talk about the process of going from sewing to printing? Because that was a big leap.
Yeah.
And then with it.
I think what happened was, I actually very early on entered that. Liberty did that open call to have your stuff in Liberty, and I had these cushions that I'd obviously stitched things on, and they basically said, we really love your stuff, but how are you going to make 50? You need to start thinking. And I think they were the ones that gave me the idea of thinking, I'll think about printing. I didn't like the idea of printing onto textiles, because I didn't like the idea of cheating someone, that they get it thinking it was embroidered but it was printed. So that's when I kind of thought, I'm going to try ceramics, I think. So I can't remember what was first, whether it was, it's all such a blur to start with. And it was really hard work finding the right people to work with. It was a long, tiresome. So when people say to me, who do you use for this and who do you use for that, I kind of don't mind telling them, but at the same time, some of these places took me 2 years to find. It's not easy finding the right manufacturers. So
we've got some lovely questions coming in.
I didn't sell cushions. They didn't want me. Liberty didn't want me, Jane. But I got lots of messages late at night from the buyer. So I'm not quite sure what was going on there.
There's a question from Aoife. Could you speak a little bit more about the significance of the text in your work? Do you start a piece with a particular quote or text in mind and let the work happen organically from there, or the other way around, or how does it go?
No, I'm not sure. Text, depending on what it is. Sometimes I might even do, a lot of the portraits that I do just randomly have text in it. It's not actually that conscious. Sometimes when I'm working at the machine, I feel like the machine sort of takes over. So things like the trunk pieces, obviously the idea was to kind of put the text in. Some pieces the text just kind of like comes about, really, and it's just accidental. And I don't know where it's going to take me. When I was doing the Cameron Harris piece, I wasn't sure what I was going to put on it, and then I started stitching, and then I could remember loads of horrible things that were said, and then and then it was just easier to stitch them than to think about them. So it's a cathartic, it's all in the process.
Actually, that's brings on nicely to another point. You were talking earlier before the call started about the process, and what that's like, and that the work can take kind of 5 minutes, but the process, the thinking, takes a long time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'm in a process at the minute that's been about, I don't know how many months in the process, waiting to do the work. Yeah, when I kind of like practically do the work, it could be quite quick, but there's an awful lot of months beforehand I'm in it at the minute that I've kind of got 4 pieces in my head trying to work out, and actually making them. Maybe they won't take that long, they might do, I don't know, but the process is, one of them is been in my head for about a year, and it's just working it through. And it might be just notebooks. I don't actually sketch in sketchbooks. I sketch on scrappy bits of fabric, or I just write a lot of notes, but I don't actually draw in a notebook anymore because I don't like drawing in books. So it's a weird process.
Do you sketch with
Do I missed that, my dear. Sorry.
Sketch with the Machine.
Yeah, Sketch with, yeah. Is that another band name? Sketch with the Machine.
Yeah. This is a really great point Jane has raised, that it's strange that you use text so much when you say writing, etc.
Yeah.
Oh, it just went away from is difficult with dyslexia.
Yeah, it skips my brain.
I mean, no one's expecting spelling.
When I'm writing with the machine, I feel like it's literally just going straight into my hands. I do make spelling mistakes, but I find it a lot easier to write with the machine than write with a pen. A lot easier. So I've written quite a lot with the machine that I wouldn't do with my hand. I don't know what that's about. I don't know what that's about. Apparently it is something to do with the dyslexia that it was explained to me once, but I kind of gave up listening, partly because I'm dyslexic. Excuses.
Emma is asking, do you manage your own business? Are you a business-minded person? And if not, how do you make it work? I mean, I can answer that for you, but go ahead.
No, do you want to answer that?
Not a naturally business-minded person from a traditional business standpoint, but I think you understand the business of making and what will sell and that side of business, but the other side of business is a guessing game.
I can manage somebody else very easily, but I cannot do it at all for myself. If I was running somebody else's, very easy to say, you should do this and do this and do this and contact this and contact this. For me, I honestly, I can't do any of it. I think a lot of us are probably in the same boat. It's very easy to say to other people. It's very easy to kind of like say you should do this. Doing it for yourself is just, awful. Can't. I'm rubbish.
But that aside, you've had a successul business, so you can't entirely say that.
Yeah. I mean, it's been going for well over 10 years. So actually, and I've been paying myself. I've stayed afloat. So yeah, I can't. It's been going. So I shouldn't really. I'm just so used to kind of like just knocking it the whole time. But maybe I shouldn't.
You shouldn't, because it's not something everyone can achieve. And I think what you've done really well is take something that was, really started as a hobby, then became an art practice, and managed to turn it into something that you could leverage into a product that, you could sell again and again and again. Because when you started out, everything was dependent on you being able to physically do it. And that had a cap, that had a limit as to how much work you could make or how far you could sell. And learning to translate that fine art product into a mass production product, that's the ticket.
I mean, Zoe's written here about do I consider myself? No, I'm not an illustrator at all. I cannot illustrate. I can kind of draw what needs to be drawn, but an illustrator takes kind of like, you give an illustrator a job and say do this and they'll do it. But I just kind of like, if it's a line drawing, I just basically stitch what I want. When I get commissions from Museum and Heritage, it's almost like they know how I work, which is leave it with me, see what you get. You might like it, you might not. They don't instruct me. They like the fact that I just go off, and it's a much more art way of doing it. It's a much more, so some really like it, and some don't. Some want prep drawings and this, that, and the other. And it's just, you're not going to get drawings. I don't know what you're going to get. You just have to wait and see. You have to trust me. I can make museum shops a lot of money. Just trust me on it, and then we'll see. But I kind of thought at one point, oh, maybe I can do illustration. I can't do illustration at all. I really can't. I really can't. It's a whole, illustration's a whole different skill. It's not me. So no. Sorry.
To hear it from Tina, there are no skills that she possesses, but that is not the case. She just can't identify them within herself. This is a really great question from Serena about, she'd love to know more about Dear to Me. It's such a beautiful piece, and it clearly comes from a very personal place. Do you find it easier or more organic to make work from a personal or commercially perspective place?
Yeah, if I'm really honest, the commercial side I have to do. I don't have a choice. I have to do it to earn to be in the studio. It's I could be working in a shop. It just so happens that I do that. So I don't want to do the commercial stuff. the actual piece, the work that is my actual work, obviously is what I want to do. That piece Dead to Me was yeah, it was kind of quite hard to do. Yeah, I found it quite tricky, but it's led off onto quite a few different avenues to do with you know, now sort of like thinking about gender and all sorts. So it's gone down a whole rabbit hole of loads of stuff, which is great. So that's the thing, you do something, it's part of the process, isn't it? So yeah.
Do you find it cathartic? Is there a
Yeah.
catharsis and a meditation?
Yeah, it is cathartic, but I realized that I do it, and I realized what I really found this lockdown, especially doing the big, I didn't really talk much about it, the big lockdown piece, which was actually asking people on social media. They sent me their pictures of their lockdown highlights, and it's all one continuous thread, the whole piece. And it made me realize it's not enough to just do the work. It's a three-way thing. I need to have the viewer. I need the reaction from somebody looking at it, whatever that reaction is. I need it. And it made me kind of like realize I don't particularly necessarily want I want my stuff to be seen by as many people as possible, I suppose. And whether they love it or hate it, that's not the point. I want them to see it. And that really made me kind of like think, it's not commercial galleries I'm interested in, it's institutions. You know, I'm interested in my work being in, you know, music. You know, the idea of working on something for a year and it being in a museum is great, rather than being really commercially successful in a gallery. So I mean, I didn't know that before, but that kind of really did teach me quite a bit, I think.
I think that's a really big realization, and,
yeah.
And to understand what how you work best, that in isolation without having that dialogue and that interaction with others, it affects the work, but also where it's going and where to focus your energy as far as the end result. So talk, if you remember at the beginning of the video, I like looked inside a gallery and there was a big tapestry kind of looking piece.
Yeah.
Do you want to just kind of say a little bit more about it? Because it was really, I mean, she talked, if you read.
Oh yeah, so that the piece itself, basically, I knew at the start of lockdown I wanted to make something, and I wanted it to be engagement, because I found what kept me sane was actually Twitter. I was having a lot of conversation, and Twitter was a really nice place in March. It was a nice place. It wasn't a sort of cesspool that it normally is. And I just put out a call on social media and just said, send me pictures of your, what I initially said, lockdown moments, not lockdown highlights. And everything I got was really positive. It was all, you know, things in the garden or baking or just happy stuff. And I started stitching. Now, the fabric that I got to stitch on happens to just be, it was remnants from somebody that was making scrubs for the NHS. So you kind of, it's all COVID wrapped up in one piece, basically. So the blue squares were all different remnants from scrubs, and each, I kind of like, I mean, it wasn't, you know, I sort of drew each picture and then just pull the thread across, so it's all one continuous thread. Then it's stitched onto quite a big panel, which is, it's 2 meters by 2 meters, and then it's got lots of stuff. It's got lots of statistics to do with COVID on the outside. So that piece hopefully is going to a museum, but I don't want to say anything in case it jinxes. But it's been a long while in the process, and because I did that and I spoke to some other museums, it means that another museum is kind of interested. It's just opened up quite a lot of stuff that I didn't think would ever happen. So for me thinking, oh, I'd love to be in museums, it's kind of, it looks like it's happening, which is great. Hopefully.
Aoife said, I love the skeletal work. Is that a whole collection, and what's the background of it?
Oh yeah, the skeletal work. I hate talking about the skeletal work because it wasn't just skeletal. It was a process. It involved lots of skeletals of kind of like lots of, there was sort of mythical creatures, but then it went into things like there was a lot of illnesses and things that I was making, and it kind of, I was asked to do skeletal work, but for me it kind of became more about the idea of, it wasn't just about beauty, it was about the idea of oh god, it's really hard sometimes you do work and you don't want it to sound, I can imagine it's going to sound one way, and it's not. It was, the idea of who are we to kind of choose what's, you know, what's right and what's not. And yeah, it was, you know, it was the, you know, the idea of kind of abortion and stuff was in there, and there was a lot of that to do with it, because there was lots of things with deformities and stuff, and it was kind of thinking about that side of things, which is, it's a grey area to sort of talk about stuff like that, because, you know, people don't necessarily really, you know, yeah. And it will come across as if I'm that, yeah, it will just come across the wrong way. So I hate it. Sometimes I don't like saying what piece. Sometimes I just don't like saying what work's about, because you just think, just, it's about whatever. It's about skeleton. I don't know. It's whatever you want it to be about. So yeah, thank you though.
I noticed you have an old ring hat in your studio. Please discuss. There's just, I mean, it's amazing that you've, like, Tina collects everything. I think you're much better than when I first met you, but you have like piles of stuff.
Awful. Yeah, I because I always think, if I find something, the riding hat I just found somewhere, and I thought, yeah, I'll do a piece with that. I don't know what, I just liked it as an object. But it just means that you don't throw anything away, because you're constantly, and I think that's my upbringing, because my upbringing was very much kind of, nothing got thrown away, everything got recycled or reused or something. And I can't, it means that I'm hoard stuff, and then I always think, oh, I'll do something with that. I mean, who keeps Happy Meal toys from 1983? Who? Why? Some of them are still in the bags.
That's smart collecting. If you're going to collect anything, better than string too short to use.
I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, it kind of forces me to think I've got to make something with all these things. So
can we talk about painting?
Yeah.
So we've sewn our asses off, we've printed our sewing asses off, and now we're toying with painting.
Yeah. I don't particularly, I'm not confident with it. And I hadn't painted for ages, and then I kind of started again a little bit, and ultimately I want to combine painting and stitching. But in an ideal world, I'd have a long arm machine and I'd do massive pieces, and that's not going to happen. So it's frustrating trying to work with constraints, because I really want to do huge. I mean, I look at Serena's work and I just think, yeah, I want to do a really big piece as well. And, you know, I can't. So that's kind of frustrating. So I have to sort of work within that. But it's interesting trying to paint, because it's kind of, I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to enjoy it, because I thought, it's been years, can I get back into it? But yeah, it was kind of, I'd like to combine it all, basically, because I think the sewing machine is probably always going to be my tool of choice. You know, it's always going to be my tool of choice, I think. But it'd be nice to sort of combine it with, you know, other things. So yeah.
Brilliant. Bye, Zoe. Thanks for coming. It's -44 in Canada. I feel your pain. I'm in Massachusetts, and there's more snow than I care to discuss. But thanks for coming all the way from Canada.
Wow.
That's amazing. Anybody have any other questions? I'm just conscious of time and people having to go places. But if you got any other questions before we head off, stick them in there. But otherwise, Tina, it's always a pleasure. I think, you know, you've done a huge amount over the years, and you ought to give yourself a bit more credit for it.
Thank you.
Jules found myself imagining your fabulous, candid work on the crockery of the NHS. Conversational, curious, cheering, thoughtful. No fine china, but you'd reach a huge audience. I think Jules, I think it's a good point. I also think sticking with the health theme and doing some work with like the Wellcome Trust and NHS and things like that is a really good shout, and where a lot of Tina's work would belong.
Yeah. Oh, and I've
but anyway, thank you.
Cafes. I've done restaurants and cafes. See, I've done a lot if you milking it. So yeah, my stuff is in cafes and stuff. Yeah.
I also think that you do, even though the answer to, I think it was your question, Aoife, about making commercial work. Even though Tina said she doesn't like to make it, i.e. it's restrictive, she actually loves heritage stuff and gift shops and things. So there is a passion there that's where it started from, I think, and an understanding of what belongs in there. So I think she's done loads of things. She just can't give herself credit because it's painful.
A little bit, yeah. Sorry. No,
no.
Yeah, you're right with it. Yeah, okay, yes, I'll shut up.
I'm not saying shut up. I'm saying
I can. Yeah, you see, they're all saying it. They're all the same. They're all the same. We're all the same. We're all thinking exactly the same thing. That they'd all be like that. Yeah, yeah. See.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Listen, thanks for giving us your time and for showing us your stuff and painting yourself with listening to yourself. I think it's a really important practice for everybody, and I think you get better the more you do it. And I appreciate you doing it because I know it's not your favorite thing to do, but I think there's, you know, a lot to take away for the rest of us. So thank you, and everybody else, thank you for joining. Next month, it's not up on the website yet, but next month we've got studio visit with Cove. Sorry. Oh, family. We've got a studio visit with Cove, who do residencies for makers of all kinds in Scotland, and it's really cool because they're going to take us around and show us their space. But the coolest part is there's no hooks, there's no catches. You can just go and have time, which I think is a commodity we take for granted. I mean, certainly at the moment, it feels like time is taking a really long time to pass by, but I think having a space where you're uninterrupted by your family and things like that is a grace beyond compare. So come next month, it'll go up on the website soon, and take that virtual studio tour with us, because I think it'll be very different. It won't be looking at art, it'll be looking at space and opportunities. So something to consider. And we've got Louise McGettrick, who is a toy maker and writer and storyteller, joining us for 11Z's on the 16th, Wednesday, next week. And in the meantime, have a nice life, make wonderful things, and stay safe, and I will see you soon. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye.